1920 was a year filled with political and artistic growth. The Surrealist movement was further established in 1920 when André Breton and Philippe Soupont distributed The Magnetic Fields, the first literary surrealist work. Surrealism affected many artists, like Matisse. This is a portrait of Matisse, who's sitting here, and he was sitting with a playwright. And this portrait was taken because at the time, in the year 1920, Matisse was working on a surrealist play. Another artist that surrealism affected was Picasso. Here is a collection of pieces that Picasso was working on or published in the 1920s or the year 1920. This end piece is a draft that Picasso published or was working on, and ironically, similar to Matisse, Picasso was working on a surrealist play, and so this is a design that went on to be created by Picasso. And these were two beautiful paintings / drawings, and this was a piece that he published for a play that was going on in the 1920s or the year 1920. Another artist that surrealism profoundly affected in the year 1920 was Duchamp. And here's a collection of pieces that he created in the 1920s or year 1920. I really found this piece in the middle just really beautiful and fascinating. There's like a simplicity and a complexity, and it was really similar to this other piece that became very famous. And it was a glass piece, and yet you can see that this photograph is very similar, and just the lines and the mix of patterns. So it's quite fascinating. But instead of focusing on surrealism in this presentation, I really became very fascinated with Gandhi as a key figure in the 1920s. And in the year 1920, specifically September 4th, Gandhi started the non-cooperation movement. The group aimed to free the Indian nation from the British reforms and establish a new government. The non-cooperation movement started as a response to the inhumane laws the British government had instilled on the Indian population. National Geographic praised Gandhi for his ability to create a public persona and a philosophy of truth-focused, non-violent, non-cooperation called Satyagraha. Gandhi states that he began to call the Indian movement Satyagraha, that is to say, the force which is born of truth and love or non-violence, and gave up the use of the phrase passive resistance. During my research, I found that Gandhi's ideas on truth reminded me of the famous line from a 1819 poem titled An Ode to a Grecian Urn. As the narrator states in the poem, one of the final lines, "Beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know." This final line asserts that the only eternal thing in life is truth. And similar to Gandhi, Keats idolized the idea of truth. But what modernized Gandhi was his ability to create an active approach to his philosophies on truth through his speeches and his protests. Here we see Steve Jobs with a poster of Gandhi. Here is a picture of Gandhi during his hunger strike. And here's Gandhi during the Salt March. I feel that Gandhi's principles and thoughts on truth directly influenced modern artists, specifically performance artists like Marina Abramovich and Yule Lezipen. Works like Rhythm Zero, which are seen here, and Rest Energy. Both of these pieces exhibit characteristics of Satyagraha As performance artist, Yulei describes himself as a social figure who executes his art in a social context.